let's continue pinning the assets on our character's shirt so that they'll follow our mesh as needed. We can move now to the top button and work on setting that up. If other selections are getting in the way as far as the, let's say the IK that was just selected or any other assets, what you could do is turn off the visibility. That's another cool thing about setting up these buttons. So for example, with the IK, you can go to the IK's group, and since we no longer need to see them, everything's hooked up, we could just turn that off. And then as far as the joints, what I like to do is just go up to show and make sure that joints is turned off. So now what we get is a nice clean looking character, a character rig. And then you could even turn off deformers if you like as well, okay, to hide the clusters. Alright, let's get right back to it. So for this button again, we want to make sure that we go ahead and apply it to its layer. Just hit add. Later on we can go ahead and delete the layer. Let's go ahead and template it. We'll select our mesh. We see that we have some edges that we can apply our rivet to. That's going to work well for us. So we'll go to component mode. In edge mode, we'll select the two adjacent edges, go to our rivet and apply. From there we will scale it down 0.05 so it's not so large. Now we'll, to determine the name, select the button. That's going to be button D. Go to our rivet, and if we like, we can go to our rivet before that, which is underneath our group. Select it, copy its name, go to our rivet that we've just made, paste the name, and do our connection. So that's going to be selecting our rivet, followed by selecting our button and doing a parent constraint. Now with that done, we are ready to go ahead and make sure that our button will scale as well as our rivet. So with our button selected, we'll just put that under View Transforms. We'll control click that View Transforms last, being that it's simply going to be parented to it. Hit P. Then as far as the rivet is concerned, we want to make sure that's under its right group. So we'll select the rivet, control click the group, hit P. It's just hidden. If we want to, we could go to extras, show it, and do our constraints. So that's going to be again selecting our character scale followed by the rivet and going ahead and doing a scale constraint with maintain offset turned on. And of course with this rivet, do want to change the name so that it will be named appropriately. That was D and 01 instead, just to switch that around. There we go. So now everything will move fine, just like what we need, how we need it to move, and everything should scale fine as well. So we test that out. Great. Okay, so I'll just undo that, and we can go ahead and continue moving on now to the next button, which is right there in the center. So we'll continue along with that. Okay, add selected objects. Then we want to make sure that that's going to be templated. The button. We'll select our mesh. We could even frame it so it's not going to move from us. We'll go to our component mode, select our edges, apply another rivet, scale it down so it's not so large, and from here, of course, we can name it if we like. We should have the name already copied, so we could just paste it, and this should be button F. We could always test that out by going to the button and checking that out. Okay, so that's actually button C, excuse me. So that's as simple as selecting that and switching that F to a C. Great. Now that that's been done, we need to do our constraint. So we select our object followed by our button, do our parent constraint, select the button, put it under its View Transforms. And for this lesson, I'm pretty much going to go through and take care of the button. So if you like, you can go ahead and move on to the next lesson if you that's if you prefer. But I'm just going to keep doing this process until all of the buttons for the shirts have been connected. before we move on to other parts of the character. Okay, so now that that's done, we have it parented where it needs to go. For the rivet, we want to make sure that's going under its rivet group, so we'll put it there. And we'll set up our scale. So that's going to scale, going to our new rivet that we've just made, going to constrain and doing a scale constraint. And then we always want to test it out. We'll select our control, move it around. Great, it's moving just fine. And when we scale, should scale fine as well. Great. All right, so that's it for this button, and we have a couple more for the main buttons of the shirt, so we can get right to that. You can select the button right underneath, add it to a layer. Okay, frame it up even so we can zoom in on this area so we can pivot our camera around there. There we go. Select our mesh. Let's go ahead and template the layer now. We find some edges that we have. We'll select them, apply our cool rivet script found again on high and 3D. Very cool script. We will shrink the locator. And with that now done, of course we can give our rivet a name. Paste. Let's go ahead and make sure of the name of the button. Should be now button B, but just to be sure, there we go. Alright, so we can, knowing that that's button B, again we can select our locator, paste the name, and switch that E to a B. Great. Once that's been done, we need to do our constrain. We select our locator, select the button, go up to constrain, parent. With the button selected, we put it on viewed transforms. With our locator selected, we put that under its group. And we need to make sure we set up our scale. So we'll go from character scale to B and do another constraint, test it out. Okay, great. And all of this testing and stuff, it make it seem kind of tedious, but it's all worth it in the end to make sure that everything is going to move just fine. So now that leaves us to our last button before we end this lesson and move on to another section of our character. So we select the button, go ahead and add it. That's button A, so we know what to call our rivet. We'll select our mesh, select the right edges. With our rivet now there, we'll go ahead and resize it, rename it. Again, that's button A for the last on the main part of the shirt. We can now select our button, or actually select the rivet, of course, and then followed by the button, and then do our parent constraint. And the reason why I'm using parent constraining rather than just doing a parent is it just is another way of helping everything scale correctly as we like it to. So now that that's done, we select our button, go under View Transforms, and what this also does is, since our buttons are going under View Transforms, and we're going to want to hide our extras, that'll prevent us from hiding the buttons as well. So those are just a couple of things. But with our rivet selected, we put it under its right group, and we work on its scale. So that's scale A, or the character scale to scale A, that is, and do our scale. Okay, great. So everything should be fine here. If we go ahead and test it out, selecting our control, moving it around, notice it moves the way we'd like it to. Great. Of course, we can go to our scale and see how everything is moving there. Excellent. Okay, great. Well, that finishes our center buttons of the shirt. In the next lesson, let's go ahead and move on to these side pieces.